Good morning. Welcome to the coaches meeting. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast, as the coach is. He's holed up in his facility, in his multi-million-dollar practice facility. He's got the office overlooking so he can see which players need to get extensions, which ones need to get cut. How you doing, Coach?
Doing pretty good, man. Going through the day. It's a busy Thursday, but we're finding time to sit down with quality control and, get our ducks in a row. Season's about to start.
Well, this has been a big couple of days for quality control because, as some people may remember, quality control advocated for the 49ers to handle business with Juwan Jennings before even doing anything with Brandon Ayuk. And that's exactly what the 49ers did. So I'd like to say in year 8, you can clearly see the synergy between front office, coaching staff, quality control coming together, group effort, everyone pulling the same direction. It's good to see.
Yeah, it really is. Right now, it seems as though that they're just trying to handle a lot of transitional pieces on the team right now. They're trying to basically batten down the hatches and get ready for the season. We need a collective effort to be able to feel like we've got a chance at keeping the same standard that we're accustomed to over the past couple of years, which is Super Bowl standard. Right? We're not talking about trying to make the playoffs or, putting together or winning the division. We got first world problems.
Okay, first world problems. Trying to extend a wide receiver who's good. Niners having a tough time with Brandon Ayuk while the rest of the league is handling business. The latest team to extend a wide receiver is the 49ers South, the Dolphins. With Mike McDaniel, same system, same philosophy. Just gave Jaylen Waddle 3 years, $84.75 million. That's $28.25 per season, and that's $76 million guaranteed. Almost all of it guaranteed. Very interesting. Yeah. Jaylen Waddle, also a year younger than Brandon Ayuk, was drafted a year later. So the Dolphins got ahead of the situation here. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this move for Miami, and what do you think it sort of implicates for the Niners and Brandon Ayuk?
Well, I think that it's just more of the same for them. Jaylen Waddle is an important cog in what they do. He's an important piece. I mean, outside of Tyreek Hill, he is the most important receiver that they have. And he's shown consistency. Has he shown more consistency than Brandon Ayuk? No, in my opinion. And he's on a team where they haven't been nearly as successful as the 49ers, and they don't have nearly as many players who deserve that type of money. One thing that I will say is that this is an offensively led team as far as the Dolphins are concerned. They let Christian Wilkins walk, right, and decided to pay Jaylen Waddle. That's something that has to be looked at. Whereas the Niners are defensively driven, right? So if you're marrying over what this does for Brandon Ayuk, you would have to say to yourself, if I'm BA, this is music to my ears, right? Not only was the money on par with maybe my floor or where I expect to land, but it was mostly guaranteed. So it also shows the type of deal, how it was structured, that they really were intentional in making sure that he gets his money. One thing that I will say right now is that Brandon Ayuk has kind of put himself in a really good position from the standpoint of he's allowed himself to be patient enough for the market to shape in front of his eyes, right? So conversations that were happening pre-draft, right, post Super Bowl, were conversations about a fictitious market, right? What can we talk about in a concept of what the market can give you? Well, that is coming to real life now. We know what receivers are getting paid. We've seen A.J. Brown get paid. We saw Devontae Smith get paid. We saw Amon-Ra St. Brown get paid. Now we're seeing Jaylen Waddle get paid. So the floor on not even the floor, but the market on the going rate of, how can I put this? Impactful receivers, right? Because Jaylen Waddle isn't a number one. There's some people that are traditionalists enough to look at Amon-Ra St. Brown and say, okay, I get that he is the number one weapon here, but the way he's used, it's not like they stick him out over on the X and just make him go win like a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase, right? So now it's starting to see that all types of different receivers are getting paid, and they're getting paid big money. The Niners, they're going to have to play ball, Grant.
It's interesting. I feel like a lot of people, me included, like my first reaction on Twitter was LOL 49ers. Like, what are you waiting for? Patience is not a virtue. You got to get this deal done with Brandon Ayuk. So that's one way to look at it. The Niners doing business as usual, drawing these extensions out as long as freaking possible, giving them at the last minute might be actually costing them money instead of saving them money. But the other way to potentially look at it is that this is what Brandon Ayuk wants, that he wants to draw this out. He wants the wide receiver market to be as set as possible, because every time someone like Jaylen Waddle or Amon-Ra St. Brown gets $28 million a year, his position gets stronger, because he can say he doesn't have, Tyreek Hill numbers, but he definitely has Jaylen Waddle numbers.
For sure.
And the Niners can't really say, well, we're paying Deebo, so we can't pay you, when the Dolphins are paying Tyreek Hill and now Jaylen Waddle and soon to be Tua. So it's like all the Niners' excuses are leaving. They have to make up their mind. Like, if you want Brandon Ayuk, which you do, you didn't trade him at the draft, seems like you got to pay him the market rate. I mean, the Niners keep trying to find this middle ground, this third door where they can have Ayuk for a discount. Like, are you not looking at the wide receiver market? It's disgusting, and you want to be in that market, so pay up.
Yeah, and also
it's like trying to live in Beverly Hills. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to find a bungalow in Beverly Hills. You got to pay up. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying. Like right now, that's just the market for what receivers are getting paid right now. And then you also look at the cap and how we've gotten an extra 30 plus million put on the cap. It's not the number, but it's the concept of the number. And what do I mean by that? Like, all right, yes, we could say 30 million a year or 28 to 30 plus million a year for a receiver is like, what we're traditionally used to seeing. That's like Randy Moss money. That's T.O. money, right? That's like top of the heap, tip of the spear money. But the game is leaning more and more towards the pass. And more, the guys who are actually the number one can't miss guys on offenses are receivers. The game is changing that way in a sense. We're going to talk about, in a sense, why we're kind of running backwards in that. But right now, there was a time when paying a quarterback $40 million was absolutely nuts. But then look at Dallas. They were riding that train with Dak, where $40 million was just unheard of. And then it bit him in the ass. It came back around and they had to pay Dak when they should have paid him before, when that $40 million would have been nothing. They probably would have got him at $36 million. And then what's even crazier is that the Niners have done this. They did it with Jimmy. They made Jimmy the league at the time after his 5-game stint with us. And at the time, it looked like a crazy deal, but it fell favorably on the cap as it kept going up into the future. So there's a way for all of this to work out, in my opinion. But I do think that they signed BA, especially with, at this stage of the game, you're going to start looking at it this way, where if we do move off of BA, it's going to be like, well, what's the Niners' excuse?
Well, I think, look, I'm the one guy who's been saying for months I would trade Brandon Ayuk. And I know it's tough to say that because we all think he's great or really good. But it kind of makes me think, like, what is he asking for, Coach? Like, what do you think his offer is? I mean, I'm guessing he would more than this. Yes. Like this, again, this is $76 million guaranteed. It's $28 million a year. I'm thinking if the Niners offered this exact same deal to Brandon Ayuk, he would say no.
You think that he would say no to this?
To this? Yes, I do. I think he feels, and I think his agent feels, that he's better than Jaylen Waddle. He's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Justin Jefferson's taking his time. T. Higgins is taking his time. There is absolutely no rush to sign a contract. Wait, and you'll get more. And I think they feel like not only are they worth more than this, that they can get more than this.
My only thing is that you got to understand where you are on the map. BA's got another year left on his deal, and he can get franchised. So I could see if the Niners and BA came to this, together, like, hey, let's go ahead and get you out the way now. You're an asset to us. We know what we're going to have to pay you now. Let's just go ahead and do it. Right.
But the Niners would look bad doing that with Ayuk too. I think, like, look at every other team understands the wide receiver market, and is willing to pay it. Like the Dolphins got ahead of it. This is as soon as he was available to get extended after year 3, they paid Jaylen Waddle. The Niners are over here dragging their feet, being like, man, these wide receivers sure are expensive. Like, yeah. Did you not notice? Like, what did you think this is?
Yeah. They should already know that the wide receivers are expensive because they had to pay Deebo.
Right.
They've seen this coming, Grant.
Yeah.
That's why I just, we're going to get to the other topic, but there's a reason why all of this is very hard to do, in my opinion. And really, they're at an impasse where I think that possibly Deebo may have to get squeezed.
Well, let's talk about Deebo. The thing that's interesting to me is he's at practice. Well, first of all, it's not what the Waddle. I want to change this. It's not what the Waddle deal means for Deebo. It's what the Jennings deal means for Deebo. Because Jennings got more money than I expected. Like Jennings is going to be getting $10 million next year. He got a $15 million extension, 5 this year, 10 next year. 10's a lot of money. $10 million. I mean, starting wide receivers make that much money. So he had 19 catches last year. It seems like maybe Jawan Jennings' role is going to be increasing, and that he might even be a guy who gets starts in the future. So maybe Brandon Ayuk's out, maybe Deebo's out. It seems to me that Deebo might be the one who's out. I know a lot of people have speculated this, but let's look at Armstead. The Niners cut Armstead. They made it a post-June 1 designation so they could save as much cap space as possible this year. Well, they also flirted with trading Deebo in the draft. Oh, he's gone. I'll finish my thought. They flirted with trading Deebo in the draft. If they got some offers they liked, wouldn't they use the same logic? Instead of trading Deebo now, trade Deebo after June 1. Save as much cap space as possible. I don't know. Are the moves pointing at the Niners are thinking that way? I mean, you draft Pearsall, you draft Cowing, you extend Jennings, you give him starting wide receiver money. There's like 4 pieces of evidence pointing to the fact that the Niners could be looking to move on from Deebo. You tried to trade him. That's another one. Cut Eric Armstead and gave him a post-June 1 designation. I'm interested to see. It's May 30th. June 1st is Saturday. Will Deebo be on this team in a week? That would be an interesting poll to put out. Will Deebo be on this team in a week? I mean, isn't Deebo the offense's version of Eric Armstead? He misses games every year. Getting older. Really expensive. Frankly, overpaid. Like Trent Williams misses games every year, but is Trent Williams overpaid? No. Deebo Samuel is the most overpaid player in the team. Didn't take a pay cut, but the Niners invested a bunch more at wide receiver. Okay, side poll. Do you guys think the coach is coming back? I don't know. It was clear he was having internet issues. I didn't want to say anything because people have been putting up with my terrible computer for like 6 months. But now I'm the one with a good computer. Let's take some super chats while we wait for the coach to get back. Michael McCann says, don't think SF should have reworked Jennings before Ayuk shows a willingness to cave. Waddle under 30 million is good for SF, getting Ayuk under 30. I think it's interesting, like great points. The Niners talk about how they always wait really long to get these extensions done. They got Jennings done in May. $15 million. They got it done in May. They got McKivitz done in April or March. They got him done in March. So it's just the really expensive ones that take longer. Why? Did the Niners save money by drawing out the Nick Bosa extension till September 6th last year? You tell me. Another question for the class. Corey Soto, I think the idea that BA has no leverage is false. He can make things problematic, and that is a form of power. Niners don't want that, especially at this time. He can also make himself seem like a victim. I mean, like, why are the Niners holding him hostage? Why won't they trade him or pay him? He's not asking for anything outrageous. He's a all-pro wide receiver. The market for all-pro wide receivers has been set. The Niners are almost kind of like stamping their feet and jumping up and down and saying, that's not fair. I don't like it. Like, okay. Trade him or sign him. Those are the two options. I would have traded him. You missed your opportunity to do that, so you want to keep him, so sign him. Or be prepared for this to get really awkward. I don't know. I think he has leverage too. Damon Dickerson, I believe in this regime, but if they pay Brandon Ayuk $30 million and Jawan 10 without changing scheme and ball distribution, I can't wrap my hand around it. Yeah. It doesn't make sense, right? It just doesn't make sense. The Jawan Jennings extension really puts things in perspective for Deebo. Or Ayuk, one of the two. Like, one of those guys is out. Gotta be. One of those guys won't be on the team in 2025 when Jawan Jennings is making $10 million. There's no freaking way. And it's like, I don't know. It seems like the Niners are more committed to Ayuk, right? They've said they want him to be on the team for the rest of his career. Have they said that about Deebo? No. No, what they did was they shopped Deebo during the draft. He's back. No, he's not. That was funny. Is this a win now season? The Niners always say they're in win now mode, but they don't like do everything in their power to make sure it happens. To me, they should have learned from the last 4 long contract extensions. Kittle, Fred Warner, Deebo, Nick Bosa, in that order, 4 years in a row. Each one dragged on into July, August, one time September. Each player had a down season after that. Kittle missed 8 games. Warner missed the Pro Bowl. Deebo was awful. And Nick Bosa had a down season by his standards.
What's going on?
What's going on?
If this thing pops out on me again, I don't know what to do. I'm having a lot of technical difficulties over here. It's been a long day.
Okay. It happens. What I want to know is, do you think if the Niners might trade Deebo after June 1?
I do believe that there's a possibility that they may trade Deebo after June 1 because they may have a deal already in tow. They waited for Eric Armstead's deal. They waited till June 1 to get him paid, where they could have bit the bullet and just did it right away. They didn't. They're obviously trying to roll out what they see fiscally for the team, which is we're in the transition period. We're in flux. And right now we have to figure out how to keep the best of what we have and move on from vestiges of the team that quite frankly, we overpaid for because of how the team was built. So I do believe the writing is on the wall for Deebo. I don't know if you've touched on this before. I know that in our pre-shows that you have is that this possibly one of the reasons why Deebo is showing and proving as being a leader with the team right now, because he's possibly in an audition for the rest of the league to show that he can be a team leader, and show that he can carry a load, and show that the type of money that he's getting paid is not only worth the money, is not only worth the skill set that he's putting out, but I think he's paying for his next deal as well. His next deal is coming too. So, and he wants to stay in the echelon in which he's at. You know, one thing about the league is that whether you go up or you go down, that's your floor, right? If you take a deal that gives you less than what you're worth, then that's going to be something that's going to permeate throughout your career, and it's going to follow you around. It's part and parcel one of the reasons why Eric Armstead left, is because he knew that you want to go.
No, that's exactly. I was waiting to talk about Eric Armstead. I'm glad you brought him up.
But Eric Armstead knew that even if he would have did a solid for the team and stayed, he would have been effectively killing his floor. He would have killed his market, and no other team would have paid him that money that the Niners would do to him. So this was more about giving the Niners a break rather than Eric Armstead understanding where I stand in the league and where my market value is at this stage of my career. And I'm not willing to give that up for you guys just because, you cook the books. I
just feel like the Niners made a hard stance with Armstead. Like, look, man, you're a 4-time captain. You're the longest tenured player on the team. You've had some great years. You've missed time 2 seasons in a row. And frankly, you're overpaid. Like, we got to slash your salary or you got to go. And once they released him, they made it a June 1st designation to create as much cap space as possible for this year, which is a big year for them. Is Deebo not the Armstead of the offense? I mean, getting older,
yes.
Misses games every year, way overpaid. We know they tried to shop him during the draft. Is this something that could become viable after June 1? I mean, they say they want to keep their team as good as possible right now, but drafting Pearsall, extending Jennings, it just kind of feels like it's pointing this direction.
Yeah, and then on top of it is that it doesn't. All right, so from this perspective, it makes the Niners look like they have like buyer's remorse in a sense, right? But really, what it is that contracts. This is how I see it. Contracts are doled out, and yes, it may say for this year to this year you get paid X amount of money, but I look at scholarships. I think about the loose connection, but I look at contracts almost like scholarships where, yeah, you may have gotten it for a duration, but it's up to you to keep up with that annually. And that's how contracts are. Yeah, we may be paying you this annually, but you got to show improve each year. And I feel like it's dwindled for Deebo. They bet on him. They paid him his money. He just hasn't lived up to it.
Agree. And I want to say something. I like this extension for Jennings. Forget Deebo for a second. I didn't like the extension for Deebo. I mean, in retrospect, it was a bad move. It was too much money. But for a lot of reasons, I mean, he couldn't keep it up, but it's also a run-first team, which is what we're talking about with Ayuk. I think Jennings is such a perfect fit, not just schematically. He's a great fit with Purdy, and he's a great fit financially. He's not that expensive. Is he fast? Is he going to threaten the entire field? No. But he's dominant. Well, maybe dominant's a strong word. He's very good in the areas of the field where Purdy's very good. Mm-hmm. Like, and like his size, I think, is important. If you're throwing the ball over the middle, I think it's nice to have a bigger target who can take the ball away from linebackers and safeties. Like we saw Purdy throw a pick yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's almost a function of the offense. You have to force the ball over the middle to a degree, and those are where the interceptions come. So if you're throwing the ball to Ricky Pearsall or Deebo Samuel, there's a high margin. I mean, there's a low margin for error. But if you throw it to Jawan, he can make you look really good. I like this move.
I agree. It's somebody who's instant offense. He gives us a raw physicality that we need in this offense. I tend to believe that the Ravens game would have been different if Jawan would have played. You saw the last game that he had in the Super Bowl. He's worth the money. He's worth the money.
And the blocking.
Yes. As far as
to run first team.
Yeah. As far as like the skill set is concerned for what Jauan Jennings brings to the 49ers, he's worth every penny that he's made. It's just we just got a lot of other guys who need to get their money too, and he just got caught up in the wash. But like I said yesterday, in a sense, I don't want to give the Niners too much credit. I just think that the market wasn't there for Jauan, and they gave him the best offer that he could have right now. But it was only for 2 years. It felt transactional more than it felt like a reward. Teams, even though they love to do this, teams like the virtue signal that they're gifting you your money rather than you've earned your money, right? So they always make it look like, oh, well, you've earned this, here, but it didn't seem, I don't look at it that way anyway. I look at it like it's earned, and I saw the money that they paid him. It was a little begrudging. Like, in 2 years, they're just going to go ahead and reevaluate this again.
It's interesting. We're trying to figure out which wide receiver is going to be here long term. It's possible neither one will. Like, I really feel, and I said this before the draft on the show, that if you just had Kittle, Jennings, and McCaffrey, like that trio right there can match up with any trio in the league, and you just supplement it with a couple wide receivers on their rookie contract. Well, the Niners drafted 2 wide receivers. So really, I mean, in a year, if their offensive skill position players were Kittle, Jennings, McCaffrey, Pearsall, and Cowing, it'd still be upper echelon. It would still be upper echelon. I mean, it would still be maybe not as good as the Chiefs, but that's kind of how the Chiefs are built. Tight end, a really good slot receiver, some speed on the outside, and a running back they can hand off to, maybe a guy they can dump, like McKinnon.
With all due respect.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are paying a $50 million a year quarterback too.
Well, the Niners are about to as well. And I know he's not Patrick Mahomes, but if you're going to be spending what the Niners are going to be spending on Purdy in a couple of years,
you're going to have to move that way.
You're going to have to move that way. I mean, look what the Bills did this. Yeah, the Bills did the same thing this year, getting rid of Diggs.
Yeah. You know, at this stage, like I said, we're in flux. There's a lot of transition happening, and, you know, good on the Niners because it's hard. So they got to figure out who matters most for the future, for the intermediate, and who do they have to lop off and move on from? I mean, it's a lot of moving hats, you know, so we'll see.
Okay, let's make some picks before we get back to the issues at hand for the day, because there's so many. Mm-hmm. But first, I want to make some WNBA picks, man. Screw it. This is big deal. Like, this is Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is legitimately one of the most famous athletes in America. No cap. Like, no joke. She is. Everyone wants to know what she's doing. And all of a sudden, I find the WNBA way more interesting than the regular NBA. So we're going WNBA today. Caitlin Clark.
All right.
Points. She put up 30 in her last game. Did you know that? You didn't know that.
I do now.
Do you even have your Caitlin Clark jersey yet? Because it's in the mail.
Listen, I'm a little off. I just got here, but Caitlin's the homie. Yeah. I did not know she.
Did you know she played power forward and South? I thought she was a guard. Who knew?
I thought she was a guard too. She's not a guard.
They list her at power forward and small forward. 6 feet.
Power forward. She's 6 foot tall. This is the WNBA. They're not tall women.
I mean, she had 10 boards 3 games ago. So, like, yeah, man, this girl's not playing around. And she has assists too. This girl is not playing around.
She had 6.5 assists. She's a dog. Did she? Where did she play at Iowa? Right.
Yep. And she can shoot.
She can shoot
20 and a half points. They kind of shut her down a couple times though. Just playing against.
It's amazing how fast she started her like professional career. You ever notice how fluid it is for the WNBA? It's like one day they're in college, one day they're in the pros, and it's just
I know, like she was just playing. Like
she was playing a college game like 3 months ago.
So are we going more? Are we picking? Are we fading Caitlin Clark? I want to pick Caitlin. I think we're going to win this one.
Picking Caitlin Clark. Okay. This is how this entire thing started. Caitlin Clark for the win.
Okay. Angel Reese, the other WNBA player I've heard of because she was in college 2 seconds ago. She doesn't light up.
Where's her avatar?
Seriously. That's a good point. I think that's kind of disrespectful though, because I know who Angel Reese is. And if I know who Angel Reese is.
NPC. You don't know what an NPC is? Gaming non-playable character.
Oh. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Points or rebounds? She's a rebounding monster.
She's 6'3".
Let's go boards.
That's 3 whole
inches. She's 6'3". Yes, that's a lot.
Pause. I'm wilding.
8.5 boards for Angel Reese.
She's gonna do it.
8. You think so?
Yes.
Okay. All right. How about De'Erica Hamby? She's terrific. She is a really great basketball player, as we all know. 18 and a half points. I mean, she's pretty much right on hitting that every week.
I mean, she's pretty
consistent. Oh, De'Erica Hamby?
Yeah.
He's got many talents.
She's cute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I don't think we can pick on that, though.
We might be able to.
We might be. Rebounds. Points, rebounds, and assists at the same time. 33 and a half.
She's going
to De'Erica? She's going to do it.
She's going to win the whole thing.
No. Okay. Those are the picks that I'm making for the WNBA. If you want to make picks, use the promo code Cohn, COHN. Get a deposit match up to $100. I mean, look, 100-time multipliers. I mean, there's serious multipliers here if you play on the Sleeper app. Okay.
You can multiply it all.
You can multiply it all. So we talked about Jennings, Deebo, Ayuk, all these guys. Jennings is going to be making more than $10 million next year. Meanwhile, you got Christian McCaffrey, Offensive Player of the Year, going to make $11.8 million in cash this year. And is it fair? Is it not? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's fair. And I also think that we're getting back to basics if we do follow through with it. I feel like CMC is the odd man out in so many different ways. One is he got traded into our offense, right? Outside of Trent Williams, everybody else is pretty much homegrown. Two, we basically changed the philosophy of our team to be able to bring him into our organization. For what it's worth, the only thing that doesn't make sense on this team fiscally is Christian McCaffrey's money. We don't spend money on running backs. That was one of the calling cards of the way this regime built the offense and its team, is because we felt like we could develop running backs. We could get any type of running back and put him back there. And Kyle could do. Remember those days? Remember the days of Kyle Shanahan doesn't need an all-pro running back. He doesn't have to go draft high or go to free agency or trade for anybody because the 49ers and the Shanahans, they get it done with anybody. They always
Matt Breida, Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson,
Mostert, Tevin Coleman, right?
Yeah.
These are the guys.
Tevin Campbell. I mean, you name them.
Yeah. Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason. So that's cap, though. That's not the truth. How we've been moving this offense is we've been moving our offense with a very expensive running back who he may be worth it, but that just say what we do. And it's coming to form right now as to why we can't sign BA, why we're looking at moving on from certain players. Like if we're going to have to move on from Aaron Banks. And part of that is because we're going to have to re-sign Christian McCaffrey. So my thing is that, Christian is great, but he also is emblematic of Kyle completely having something that he's never had before. And that's an all-pro at the running back position. That was something that we used to always say that's why Kyle was such a genius, because not only does he call plays remarkably and sequence them like no other, but he gets so much out of all of the types of players that he gets, especially offensive line and running backs, because he develops those guys. It's just like, well, when's the last guy you developed that lasted, that actually hit, right? We're not even talking about TDP or Eric Sermon. You won't even play Jordan Mason. Elijah Mitchell had one good year. He's a shell of himself. Raheem Mostert left and said that you tried to play him into the end of his career. Matt Breida was there but gone. You tried to repurpose who's that? Tevin Coleman to bring him in. So Tevin Campbell, I'm sorry. So, but at this, is it Tevin Campbell? Why do you keep saying Tevin? It's the singer. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through this show without cursing. And like you
we talk.
And we talk. Yeah, that's my joint.
A minute. Yeah, sorry.
A minute. So
thank you. You also said Eric Sermon. Did I say Eric Sermon? You said Eric Sermon.
Trey Sermon?
You said Eric Sermon.
I have music on the brain. So
yeah.
EPMD. I will say,
You almost called TDP EPMD. That didn't happen, but it should have.
I did not call him EPMD. You know what I'm saying? I didn't. I called him TGT. It's like, no. Okay,
but you said TDP, and then you had EPMD on the brain, and then you said Eric Sermon.
I did say Eric Sermon. And you know what's crazy? I was not listening to EPMD. It is not a good excuse. I wish I was. But
I mean, yeah.
Yo,
no, I haven't listened to EPMD in a while either, but they're great.
I will say this. We're spending a lot of money on Christian McCaffrey. And at this stage, all right, so put it this way. Let's say everybody gets paid, right? How gee whiz is Kyle then? You got an entire offense full of guys that are ranked top 3 in their positions, top 3 or top 5 in their positions. Now it's like, oh, well, he's such an amazing coordinator. And it's like, well, yeah, I would think so.
Hold on. I got a point to make here with Christian. It seems to me like the Niners went all in with the running back position. It's like, let's get the best running back we can get, the best running back in the league. Let him lead the league in touches. He'll be the offensive player of the year. Then when the playoffs come around, we'll give him the ball even more. He'll be our leading receiver, our leading rusher. When we get to the Super Bowl, we'll feed him like my dad fed Terrell Davis, and we'll win the championship. And it didn't work. They had Christian at his peak, in his prime, fully healthy, 3.5 yards per carry and a fumble in the Super Bowl. Couldn't get it done. And now we're seeing them sort of invest in passing. Jennings, and then Ayuk maybe, and then Purdy probably. And it seems like maybe the Niners realize that going all in with your running game or your running back only takes you so far.
Yeah.
And maybe, that's a tough realization for Christian to realize, it's not the Christian McCaffrey show anymore, dude. It's not.
Well, I mean, we touched on this earlier before, I hate to put it this way, but you're just a running back, dude. And that sounds really bad, but in today's league, there's a cap on what a running back is worth in an offense and what he can do. And, I understand that when you play, everybody.
And he turns 28 in a week. There's that too.
Yeah, everybody is equal. But as far as the money is concerned, right now, we can outsource Christian McCaffrey's skill set to multiple running backs and be more than okay. And the reason why I know we can do that, because that's what we were doing before we got him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's helped the offense very much. He's a hell of a player. He was the MVP of the team last year, but he's a running back. I remember LaDainian Tomlinson. He was better than Christian McCaffrey. He never won a Super Bowl. There's only so much a running back can do on his own, because even one at like McCaffrey, who's a quote unquote great receiver, what is he really doing for you on third down? On first and second down as a check down option, he can get you some yards, but on 3rd and 7, he's not your go-to guy. You'll go to Jennings before him, or Ayuk, or Kittle. So there's only so much of an impact running backs can make, in my opinion. And
I understand that as well, and it's how we talked about how the defense was so upset because they felt like the front end didn't match the back end. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of well, how do we match the front end with the back end with the offense as far as the offensive line with the running back core? We don't use Jordan Mason. We don't have an inside run game as far as being able to get short yardage downs. It's not a choice that we're going away from 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. That is a necessity. We cannot get that. And I know, and not only can we not get it, but Kyle shows because he doesn't call it. Number one rushing team in the league with the leading scorer in the league and 2 crucial downs on 3rd down. It's either 3rd and season, and then we got 3rd and goal, basically another 3rd and season, and we're in spread. I mean, that should let you know everything.
You know what's interesting? The Niners try to account for so many of their failures in the Super Bowl, but the one thing that I never got an answer from with them is the 3rd down thing. They were 3 for 12 on 3rd down. Why? You had the offensive player of the year, the best receiver out of the backfield in the league. Where was he? Where was the impact there? I mean, isn't that what you're paying for? Why was this team with this all-pro group of weapons, 4 guys who went over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 3 for 12 on 3rd down, and you had an MVP candidate quarterback? That shouldn't happen. Well, so was it just a fluke, or was there something that was exposed?
Yeah, I feel like the Chiefs really challenged the Niners to run the ball, especially between the tackles. And I feel as though that I don't think they even really stopped it. I don't want to give them that much credit. Christian fumbled and we didn't go back to it. That's what happened. Christian fumbled and we stopped going off tackle. And we were going outside zone. We were going wide zone. And I feel like once Kyle kind of runs into boundaries during a game as a play caller, he just really doesn't go back, or unless he's absolutely forced to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Christian, good luck. It just seems kind of interesting to think that he and Juwan Jennings could be making comparable money. Chris Forrester spoke yesterday, run game coordinator, offensive line coach, had some really interesting quotes about how you don't need a great offensive line. You need one that's basically good enough. And if you can get a difference maker like Trent Williams, sure, of course, but otherwise you're looking to get guys in rounds 3, 4, 5. even 6 who can become starters in this system. They may need a bunch of those guys because it's hard to say how many of these starters are going to be here next year. What do you see as the state of the offensive line?
I feel like things could be very different within 1 year. Right now, we just, Trent is if and when, right? We just don't know when Trent wants to hang it up. That's one thing. Aaron Banks is due to hit the free agent market, and for the caliber of player that he poses to be, the consistency with going to the Super Bowl, cachet matters, especially with offensive line. He's looking at making north of maybe $14 to $15 million a year as a starting left guard. Never been to a Pro Bowl, never been All Pro, but he's going to carry that money just like Mike McGlinchey did. Jake Brindle is 30 plus, I believe 32, nursing an injury. And even at his healthiest, we could do much better at the position. Same thing with Joe Feliciano. He's a journeyman. He himself is hurt, trying to come back from an injury. And then we have Spencer Burford playing out of position, inconsistent at best. When he pops and flashes, he looks the part. The only thing is that the inconsistencies are married with very good players that make him inconsistent. So that's the common denominator when you hear Coach Forrester say that Spencer Burford is the most talented offensive lineman or offensive guard that they have on the team. It feels like that's a carrot that he's throwing him because he knows that he's listening. Offensive linemen don't get a lot of pub, so all of them are listening. But at the same time, it's just too coincidental that every time you do struggle, you struggle with the players that we really need you to bow up against. Bigger, faster, stronger defensive linemen that will really get up in his chest, make him use his hands, and throw him off of his anchor. And then you have Colton McKivitz, somebody that the Niners actually cut, worked his way back, showed a little bit of consistency, and he's earned himself a 2-year deal. Now, with the most talented draft that the offensive line has seen in years, I want to say probably decades, we're going to have to see what the Niners did in the 3 offensive linemen that they picked up in being Dominic Pooney, Jarrett Kingston, as well as the Nugent, the UDFA that they picked up. Right now, I see that there's a direct competition at right guard with Spencer Burford and Dominic Pooney. I expect Dominic Pooney to win that matchup. Colton McKivitz is there for the foreseeable future, but I'm also seeing what they're going to do with center. I listened to reports from you looking at the offensive line during OTAs. They're putting Ben Barch in at center, a backup at best who's really not had a lot of time on task to play at the position. And center is one of the most important positions on the offensive line, especially with this team with setting up protections and being able to set the angles on backside scoops and front side combo blocks. I do see a competition at center, probably with maybe Ben Barch, maybe Nugent. You can sprinkle in Garrett Kingston in there. Physically, I like the way Garrett Kingston looks. He's a stronger athlete, but as far as putting together a full offensive line, what we've seen go to the Super Bowl may in fact be different by next year, just off of the attrition of Trent Williams and Jake Brindle, the competition of Spencer Burford. He may just get actually just lose his job due to competition, and we may get priced out with Aaron Banks. He may be too rich for our blood. Can't afford him.
Okay, I want to ask you a question about the Niners' philosophy on the offensive line. We heard Jim Harbaugh give his philosophy at the owners' meetings. You remember it?
Yes. The offensive line is the most important position on the field.
He said it's a weapon. It's like a fist. You know what I mean? It helps every other position group on the offense. Then we heard Chris Forrester's take on it. What did you think of Chris Forrester's take on the offensive line?
I felt like it was a company line. I feel like he understands that there's no sense in truthfully giving his thoughts on how he feels about the acquisition of the players, because I feel like that is a part of the job. The specialty of being an offensive line coach in this scheme is understanding that you're going to have to make quite frankly, chicken salad out of chicken shit. And what ends up happening is that you don't, it's almost like you excuse yourself away from wanting the normal things that all coaches want, which is the biggest, the fastest, the strongest athletes there are. I want the guys that could do the techniques the best, that will make me look good, people that I can help grow. But from his standpoint, he's already looking at the position with a filter over top, which is fiscally, how do these guys fit inside of our organization? That's number one. Two, I already know what type of pool I'm going to be pulling from when I bring these guys in. And three, I understand how they're going to be utilized more oftentimes than not. We're not going to be getting offensive linemen where we're going to need a drop back passing game. You know what I'm saying? So I will say the overall line, I felt like the overall sentiment of the offensive line, I felt like he was being honest because he was talking about his literal job. But if you got him behind closed doors, it would feel contrived. There's no way in hell that you feel okay with what they did with the offensive line in the draft, particularly with what the talent that was out there.
That's not what I took away from him at all. I think he's actually in lockstep with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And I think this is how this organization thinks about the offensive line. And I think it's completely the opposite to how Jim Harbaugh thinks of it. Remember, the Chargers got rid of their wide receivers this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. The journalists freaked out. They spent their first round pick on Joe Alt, the tackle. They were asked, well, what about the weapons in your offense? And he said, well, we think the offensive line is a weapon. The Niners don't. It's clear. They think the offensive line is something that can hurt you if it's not good enough. But if you have 5 first-round picks on the offensive line, is that really doing much for you? Like, they look at weapons as guys who touch the ball. Harbaugh looks at weapons as offensive linemen, guys who punish the defense. You're an offensive lineman. What is your philosophy on this?
I think the offensive line is one of the most important groups on the football team. They set the tempo. They give you the ethos of how you're going to maneuver throughout the game. And they also protect your quarterback and actually give him peace of mind. So as far as I'm concerned, your offensive line and your offensive line coach is probably one of the first things you put together when you get a football team together. And it's the biggest unit on the field that plays together. You don't even put 5 defensive linemen on the field.
Right.
So
when Chris Forrester said invest in players who touch the ball, I feel like when you invest in the offensive line, you are investing in the player who touches the ball the most. I mean, the center touches the ball and the quarterback touches the ball. You want to invest in the quarterback? Do you want to give him a bunch of weapons or a great offensive line? I guess the Niners would say a bunch of weapons. I think you could probably do both. I think the Niners are a little bit too skewed toward the weapon. When you're in a situation where your offensive line is the weakest position on the team and your wide receiver group is probably the strongest, at least on your offense, and you spend your first round pick on a wide receiver just because that's how you build your team, something's wrong.
Yeah, I don't agree with it, Grant, but I just saw a comment in here that said, I miss the old coach when he used to yell all the time. Grant, this is who they are, man. Like, this is how they're built. They're not going to invest in the offensive line. They never will. They lucked up on Trent. They lucked up on Joe Staley, right? If you had them do it, their interpretation of a first round pick tackle is Mike McGlinchey. That's what they think a first round tackle is. So for me, I don't run myself ragged over things that I just know aren't going to happen, and even with how they picked up offensive linemen in this year's draft, they have their own MO on what they want in the athlete. And I also kind of feel like it's planned obsolescence. We talked about this, where in a certain way they draft and they pick up players that they already know are there for a finite period of time. And they're not going to be there long enough. You're just a piece. You're here. You're a part of the assembly line to put together these cars. So in a way, I kind of feel like that way about Ricky Pearsall. But offensive line wise, we're going to see how this truly bears out once Brock gets paid. When Brock gets paid, then we'll see. We'll see how much they invest in protecting him. because, that's going to be huge if they don't protect it, if they don't protect him.
What I think is just surprising about this is like most people at Pro Football Focus today came out and said that the Niners have the best roster in football. They've had this status for years, best roster in football, but it has like two weaknesses, and it won't really address the two weaknesses. Like
They didn't say
offensive line and
were?
secondary. Offensive line and secondary. I mean, those are the weaknesses, and the Niners never really put big investments into those spots. And it's like, why? Another D lineman, another wide receiver. Like, yeah, that's how they do business. It's real clear. So let's talk about the secondary. They got a bunch of new faces back there. Man, Ambry Thomas is still on the team. They're talking about Isaac Yiadom like he's a difference maker. Like, I'm sorry. This team has had some bad corners. This team has had some bad, like Samuel Womack. I'm sorry. There are some corners on this team that I'm not sure would be in the league if they weren't on the 49ers. But Renardo Green, second round pick this year.
Talk about him.
I really like him. I've only seen him practice 3 times. I think he's a player. I think he's the most serious rookie on the team. He's competing with guys who are older than him. He's competing. A lot of rookies don't. They're like, it's not my time. I'm back in the depth chart. I'm going to get my feet wet. I'm going to take it one day at a time. Renardo Green's going out and attacking practices like, that nickel job's open. I want it. And I think from what I've seen so far, 3 practices, he's the option there. He's the best option there. Keep Lenore outside, play Renardo Green. I mean, he was drafted higher than Jair Brown was last year, and Brown's a player. I think so far so good from this guy. What have you seen from him on tape?
What I have seen from Renardo Green on tape is that he's extremely aggressive, which I love. He's game ready as far as he's never seen a matchup that he doesn't like. He plays with tons of confidence, finishes every play that I've seen him play on. One thing that I like about him too is that even though he is aggressive, he does have good ball skills. He's got great feet, doesn't lose confidence at all. I've watched games where he has been beat. Now, I will tell you this. He's susceptible to the fade route. He will. Every route that I've seen him get beat has been on a fade. So that's something that they're going to have to coach out of him. One thing about it is just temperament. He just kind of doesn't know where he is on the map as far as spatial awareness, meeting the ball at the high pointing the ball. I was about to say at the point of attack, but that's not high pointing the ball and at the catch point. And also one of those things that's that I noticed that issue with is that Ambry had that problem and Demo had that problem. You remember Demo used to always be in phase. He would be in lockstep, using the sideline as a second defender. I mean, all of the stuff that you teach. And he would not turn his head around. He would not understand where the ball was. It would almost be like he would be he would have a front row seat to his failure. Like he would do everything perfect just so the receiver could catch the ball literally in front of him. Some of those things was him understanding receiver tactics like late hands, guys understanding how to be able to shoot their hands out, use their body to shield, to be able to, for you to be able to have ball meet you. And I see that those are some issues that could arise for Renardo Green once he comes against more savvy receivers in the NFL. But as far as who he is as a player, I feel like he's accelerated. If you want to look at the rookie guys that we've seen in here, and pretty much the best guy that we've drafted outside of E-Man that we can all be proud of is pretty much Demo. Demo's pretty much our pupil, our star pupil as far as homegrown tackles corners that we've drafted. And it even took Demo about 2 seasons before he started kind of like turning on to be like, I have confidence. I'm playing with purpose right now. I am not a wilting flower out here. I think that Renardo Green is going to come in with that already. I think that's what I feel about him. He has an accelerated approach to the game, and he's already a pro in my eyes. I'm excited to see what he does.
When they drafted him, I said that they drafted him to replace Deommodore Lenoir. A lot of people said, nah, he's going to replace Travarius Ward. He's going to replace Lenoir. And it's not because Lenoir isn't good. The Niners just don't spend on number 2 corners, and Lenoir's a number 2 corner, and he's a damn good one. And he's going to go make a bunch of money somewhere else. And Renardo Green's going to take his spot in the slot. I think they could play alongside each other this year, but Green has a similar skill set where he could play outside too. But right now, like I'd rather play Lenore outside. Like, to me, I like outside corners to either be real big or real fast. And I think Green's kind of in the middle, which is a good skill set to have in the slot.
Well, let me ask you this. There were reports that they did try to extend Deamno Lenore. And it didn't
Sure,
work
they could
out.
try. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they tried to get it at a discount. Yeah.
Like, hey, man, you know what I'm saying? You want a bag? And like Demo's probably like, hell no. I'm hitting the market.
Yeah, I know what the cornerback market's like. And so the way I see what the Niners are going to do at corner in the future is they paid for Sherman. They paid for Travarius Ward. So they have a precedent of going out and spending about 3 years, $40 million on a top-ish level free agent corner. They could do something like that next year. They could re-sign Travarius Ward. Or they could go get someone 2-3 years younger. That's what I think they'll do there. But spend big money on a number 2 corner, sorry, man. I don't think they'll do it. They'll do it.
Look, let me tell you something. I'm paying attention to some of the conversations that are happening in the chat. Trent Williams is going to retire. And playing Trent Williams until he is 40 years old, that's 4 years from now, 4.5 years from now. That is a long ass time. And if Trent Williams plays until he's 40, he is not going to be giving the 49ers discounts. It's not happening. So I don't even want to think about having a 40-year-old left tackle. I don't. Like, it's time for us to some of these things, I'll tell you this, man. Some of these things are band-aids that they just don't want to rip off, right? And you could say guys like Whitworth played till 40, but look at what the state of that offensive line was. He had to play. They were begging him to play because that's how bad they were offensive line-wise. So if that's what you want, well, we're good enough to be able to keep a 40-year-old player on our team, on our offensive line, then have at it. But it's not the life that I want to live. Like, it's time. I don't know. I mean,
like, Trent Williams hasn't played a full season since he was like 25 years old or younger. At what point is his body going to go and he's not even able to play 14, 15 games a year? How did he play in the Super Bowl, in your opinion?
Oh, you mean when the corner, did you see that corner put him on his ass in open field? Like, what are we talking about? Like, let's stop acting like this is what kills me. Sometimes top of the penalties. Dude, sometimes the names supersede the player and we don't bring them down together simultaneously. The skill is not always going to be there. Sometimes it's okay to realize that.
Yeah, and it's like the Niners have so much insurance at so many positions, but not at left tackle. Really, you talk about the most important player in the team. I saw someone say, I think there was an SI article a couple of days ago, the most important player on every team, and it was Christian McCaffrey on the Niners. It's like, no, it's Trent Williams.
Yeah.
Even more than Brock Purdy. They're 3-6 when he doesn't play since he's been on the team. Brock Purdy struggled without him. Everyone struggles without him. What does the offense do well when he's not on the field? Not run the ball. Where do you go? Yeah. You can't
so,
he's that much of a difference maker.
You can't ride that out. Like the whole, I feel like sometimes I hear fans talk about these players like they're not going to get older. Like they're just, it's Deebo. Of course it's Deebo. It's Christian. It's just like, no, this stuff has an expiration date on it. And the people who survive to get the new Deebo, the new CMC, the new Trent Williams, they understand how to make shrewd business decisions when the time is right, not kick the can down the road until we go spoiled and die on the vine.
Yeah. Yeah. The Niners have a really old team and their best player is the oldest player on the team. And they're sort of at his mercy. So good luck, Trent Williams. Here's to you having another great year. He hasn't been at camp. I don't know when we're going to see him next. Maybe August.
Yeah. I just want him to be in shape and ready to go. Like, we're top heavy, bro. We're top heavy. We're a top heavy team. And we just got to see how we're going to get through the season. The biggest thing right now is we just got to get everybody paid. We got to get a team. You got to get everybody here.
Well, let's see if they have practice next week or they just shut it down. Mandatory mini camp should be in about 2 weeks.
That's going to be good.
It's going to be good, man. Coach, go do some paperwork in your office, man. He's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
Seems like a really spacious, nice office. I like it a lot.
I love my office.
It's a nice office.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everyone.